Ciao Rocco.
Ciao, mi sentite?
Sì?
Sì.
Tu?
Sì, vi sento.
Che
Come va?
colore la camera.
A casa, sì.
Stanza.
FakeAuthentic.
Ciao Enrico.
Ciao,
Ciao.
molto piacere. Non lo sentiamo.
Okay. Okay. Maybe we wait 2 minutes just to be strictly Italian or strictly Swiss and less Italian, and at 12:30 we begin.
Hi, Luca.
Ciao. Eila.
How are you?
Ciao Éric. How are you?
How are you? Fine.
Oh, lovely to see you.
Yeah.
Oh, I just saw your presentation and I'm really curious. Thanks for that. Really.
Ciao.
Ciao Beniamino.
Ciao, io però non riesco a vedere, sento le voci ma non ho immagini.
Devi provare dallo schermo ad attivare la nostra video.
Adesso esco e provo a ricollegarmi.
Ok. Okay. So we begin. Thank you everyone for joining this lunch break. It's a pleasure for us. She's Stefania and I am Luca. We are AMArchitectrue and we organize this series of conversation in relation to the FakeAuthentic theme. We are very glad and very thankful to your generosity. We had a lot of guests that will participate these small talks from here until the opening of the physical event in Milano, which is planned to be in September. And we don't want to bore you with too many things. We just want to let people talk. So today we have 3 guests and we are amazed by that. It's Rocco Vitali, Éric Lapierre and Beniamino Servino. And so we begin.
Yeah, I will start by presenting Rocco Vitali. He leads together with his brother Oliviero the Vitali studio, and he is an architect who grew up with art in his veins. And we had the pleasure to meet him in the university in Switzerland. And in 2019, we asked him, invite him to work together with us to the exhibition FakeAuthentic 2019. And during this occasion, we had the chance to appreciate his capacity to bring architecture, design, and art spontaneously together. And this is a really good quality we appreciate about him. So we are curious to listen to you, Rocco.
Okay, I will share. Thank you. I will share my screen.
Thanks. Now you can.
Do you see it or?
Not yet.
Share screen. Okay, now you should see. You see it?
Yeah, now we see. Thanks.
Okay, do you hear me? I speak in English, eh?
That's fine. We hear you. Thank you, Rocco.
Great. So, good morning and thank you once again, Luca and Stefania, for the invitation. And I'm really happy and it's a pleasure and of course a honor to speak with Beniamino Servino and Éric Lapierre, which I both really admire. And yeah, as I quickly introduce myself, very quickly, I'm an architect. I graduated in Mendrisio in 2016. And I work for a year between Tokyo at So Fujimoto Architects and at Philippe Ram in Paris for some months. And then for 2 years between 2017 and 2018, I worked in a marvelous studio in Ghent, in Belgium, De Wilderweg-Talio. It was a great experience, fantastic. And after that, in 2019, I moved back to Italy, where I worked between Italy and India together with Bijoy Jain from Studio Mumbai. And I stopped to work with him in 2020. As Stefania said, I opened my studio with Oliviero, my brother. And the studio is not just about architecture, is in between art and architecture. And we called it Vitali Studio simply for our surname. Today, I will not talk about my work in general, but I will talk about one specific work, which is FakeAuthentic, a project that I did last year together with Luca and Stefania, and a project that, you know, I will not show the final result of that project, but I would like to show more the process and the backstage images of the studio and what were the ideas behind that. And I will try to say that and to talk about that in the form of a storytelling. It was, I remember that I was, as I said, in India in 2019, and I received a phone call by Luca who said it was January, a cold day in Italy, in Milan, as today it is here, but it's June almost. And it was very hot in India. And I received this call from Luca who said, Rocco, would you like to join in April, so in 2 months, to curate together with us, with me and Stefania, an exhibition in Milan for the occasion of the Milan Design Week. The only thing that Luca said at that time was, we know that we want to curate an exhibition and we want to show furnitures of other people and not of me and Stefania and you. And I found that sentence very kind and very generous. So for this reason, I immediately accepted it and I said yes. But no one of us knew what this exhibition would have been about. So I was again in India and I was looking around. There was colorful horses, cows in the streets, dogs, different things, but I was not able to find an idea and how to gather all the people together. So when I came back to Milan, I went straight from the airport to the museum where the exhibition should have been. And I met Luca and Stefania there, and we had some ideas that we shared. You know, I remember that one was making an exhibition of kids' furnitures, another one was to make street furnitures, but no one was grounded and they were just like thoughts. We asked to the owner of the museum, what is this museum about? What do you show? And the owner of the museum said, you know, we are showing pieces of art from the past. We are showing pieces of art that some of them are real and authentic. They have values. They are made with, you know, great materials like bronze, gold. They are, you know, they have a lot of values. And some of them are just falsies, are just plastic pieces, wood pieces that they have no values and they are fake. And basically this was the beginning of everything, because this sentence brought us to say the exhibition has to be in this museum and has to be exactly what this museum is about. So FakeAuthentic came from that beautiful moment. And at that moment, we understood that even what we had to do around the furnitures, we had to create a choreography, a scenography around all the furnitures, had to deal with that. So we went back to the studio. This is the studio where I work. It's actually my father's studio. You see his paintings on the back, his drawings on the background, and the FakeAuthentic architecture in front. And I like this ambiguity of the things and how things come together. We've been, wait, I don't know what okay. We've been back to this studio, and we had to find a common theme for the exhibition to gather all the furnitures together. And I remember that Luca made a beautiful sketch, very quick, very immediate, of the facade of the palazzo of the museum. So this was a stone construction of a bugnato, typical stone construction from the Italian palazzo, and he proposed to copy this facade inside the museum. But then what we reflected on and we try was to bring this even further and to make it even more fake. So we were not interested at that time to bring the facade inside the museum, but to bring the false perspective sketch that Luca made into the museum. So to make a scenography which is based on that sketch, which is already a view, already a false interpretation of the reality. And I think this was really the interesting part. And what was interesting was that it was not just only about one perspective, because if you reproduce the reality, and if you look in a camera, you see one perspective. In this case, if you reproduce a sketch, a drawing, and if you paint it, it's about more perspective, which is more similar to reality, I guess. We are used to look at cameras and to maybe we are sick of our knowledge that there is just one perspective. This is for the television, for the cameras, and maybe for the also for our cultural background that, you know, in Renaissance they made one perspective. But if we look around, if we observe the world, it's full of different dimensions. And this is exactly what we tried to do in this exhibition. So all the story is on one end to share how this adventure of FakeAuthentic started, what is the origin of that paintings, and the origin of the name FakeAuthentic. And on the other hand is also to say that what I was, you know, looking around in India at that time was not that useless, in the sense that the world is fantastic, full of possibilities, full of beautiful elements, but we just have to observe it and transform it into something else, I think. And there is a beautiful sentence that I remember from René Magritte, who said, invisible things, there are hidden other visible things. And I think this is exactly what we try to do with that work. And we try to paint a sensation of something that you first see, that you see for the first time, and not to just make a picture, because I think there is nothing more boring, honestly, than making a picture. What you want to do is to paint or to create an architecture or a space or a spatial experience that is an experience of something that you never felt or seen before. This is more, you know, this is more a general way for me to work, and not only in this case. And yeah, this is the final object. And yeah, so this is really something that is in between real and fiction, and it's abstract and reality, and it's really what I'm looking for. You know, Werner Herzog once said that his movies, when they are documentary movies, they are more fictionary movies, you know, and when he's making a fictionary movie, the result is more a documentary movie. So, and there is a very, very fragile line between reality and fiction, and this is exactly where I would like to concentrate my work. This is a final picture of, again, the process, and the reason why I paint, the reason why I do that work. I think it's just simple to stay alive, you know, and that's the reason why I titled this lecture Living Life, because it's the moment, is exactly the moment when you love, or when you feel a friendship, or when you paint, you feel alive. Life is beautiful, but just about living that. And I don't want to show the final result of the painting, because I think that when you see a painting that is finished, you feel, at least that's what happens to me, you feel a sense of death. which is not bad, but you feel that sense of that, and that therefore you start another one, and you want just, you know, to be in that loop and to stay in a circular mood. So thank you once again for the invitation and for the fantastic work that we did together in 2019. Thanks.
Thank you, Rocco.
Thank you.
Thanks a million for your words and for sharing with us these nice moments together. And we now introduce briefly the work of Éric Lapierre, who is going to be the next speaker. And Éric he's an architect. He runs his own office together with his partner Tristan Chadney and Laurent Desmillard in Paris. He's as well a theoretician and a writer, a professor, and a curator. Recently, in 2019, he has been curating the Biennale of Lisbon together with Piovene Fabi. And he's also involved in performances through the production of concerts in his construction site. I mean, we met him in Mendrisio when he was teaching together with our studio with Jan de Wilder, and we really much appreciate he's also as a person and not only as an architect. So thank you very much, Éric, for accepting our invitation, and we're very much looking forward to listen to you and to see your beautiful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Luca, for your nice words and invitation. It's a pleasure to be there. It was also a cool time in Mendrisio that we spent together, for sure. We had a lot of fun there. And thank you, Rocco, for your presentation and nice words as well. It's a pleasure to be involved in this discussion. I don't know, maybe because I'm French and a rationalist, I have received a paper with very precise instructions, or maybe I didn't understand them, but I took them as a very precise one. So one picture, one word. So I have brought everything in that
Perfect.
in that form. So if I can share my screen.
Yeah.
Yes. So FakeAuthentic. So I go directly to the fake. That fake for me could be represented by this chapel by Peter Zumthor in Germany. I know that Peter Zumthor is those days considered by many as the most authentic architect, maybe because he lives in the mountain and built quite few and dresses as a mountain wizard from the kind of out of Game of Thrones. But I'm not really sensible to that, and for me, it's a problem about the way in which I don't understand why this kind of architectural position doesn't dare to address contemporary reality. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm sure that architecture is an artistic discipline, but as very often, the most important things have to be placed in the background and not in the foreground. Looking for that picture this morning, I found an interview that I didn't read, but that was entitled "It's All About Emotions." And I don't think architecture is all about emotions, or I think that architecture is in the end all about emotion. But if you start by emotion, you're already, it's dead. It doesn't work. Of course, architecture is a kind of specific poetry linked to the built things. But if you start by the idea of creating a poetic architecture, you will make childish things, really. and the poetry is a result. And in the authentic field, the poetry is a result. In the fake one, it's a start. And so everybody knows the story of this chapel with the peasant community involved in this in southern Germany, and the fact that it was built with a kind of a very specific wood form that had to be burned after this, well, in a kind of process which is so seemingly simple, but so sophisticated, so complicated, so almost impossible to do, to make a 20 square meter or so building. Why wasting all this energy? Why not addressing contemporary reality? And by this, I mean, actually, of course, it's a freedom for an architect to do this. There's no problem about that. But when I went there, I arrived with my car, and then I enter a little village, and I park there. There was a little parking dedicated to the chapel, but of course far away from the chapel, because the chapel is in the middle of the fields. But I stopped on that parking, and that parking is also used by the soccer field. And you know, this kind of countryside soccer field, it's just a field with the goals. So very, very much the countryside life I know and I knew when I was a kid. And then on this parking, there are also a very authentic piece of architecture in a way. Authentic because it addresses the contemporary reality and its necessities. It was the injected plastic toilets for the parking and for the chapel, because of course the chapel is so perfect. It's so supposedly authentic that of course it doesn't get any toilet. It doesn't get anything completely useful, because it would be probably not noble enough in a way. But most of all, it would be too difficult to include such necessities in such fictional architecture. And I use fictional not in a positive word, as I appreciated that it was previously used in a positive way. But this fiction is the fact that it's easy to make an architecture which is supposedly so authentic by removing almost every necessities. So in the field of contemporary chapels or modern chapels, I prefer, I don't know, the Mies van der Rohe one on the IIT campus, for instance, made of steel and completely transparent and completely reversing all the idea of sacrality. And for me, this fake architecture here is completely kitsch, and by aiming probably at being supposedly minimalistic and authentic, it's completely fake and kitsch, as you can see with this kind of triangular door, completely only arbitrary. I appreciate much more this unknown architect, unknown of me at least, that made this Paul Smith shop in on Melrose Avenue in Los Angeles, completely authentic, because completely linked to his time, linked to the way buildings are produced and built in this time, also completely linked to its context, because actually the Zumthor chapel is not linked to its context. It could be built anywhere else. It would be the same thing. And of course, whatever can be said about that. But this shop here is completely belonging to the reality of Los Angeles. You see this completely bidimensional facade and this bidimensional architecture is, of course, typical American, but also especially typically Los Angeles architecture has this kind of quality. Of course, it's just the minimum of things that have been made to make it completely iconic. I could have chosen it as an icon as well. It's just a box. It's just this kind of almost suburban-like landscape that is the Los Angeles one, but with the city intensity. So you have this big window, but you understand that this window is not intended for a pedestrian to look in, contrary to European cities, because of course in Los Angeles, no one ever walked probably on this pavement, and the entrance is on the side, and you see on the left part of the image, you see this parking lot, and that's a box, that's a parking lot, but it's made with the minimal transformation, just the choice of the color, just the name. It's made completely specific and fully dedicated to its function, which is shopping. And this for me is authentic because it belongs to its place. It belongs to the epoch in which way our time builds building, and without any trace of supposedly morality, it creates a completely specific poetry, which is the Los Angeles poetry. Iconic is probably that wall that all of you know. It's this outside, let's say, living room or outside space of the Le Corbusier's mother's house that Le Corbusier built at the beginning of the 20s, close to Lausanne in Vevey on the Leman Lake shore. And he made this space, just a wall, just a hole, just a table. And it's a frame. It's of course much more than just a wall, much more than just a hole. It's an icon because of course the landscape of the lake itself turns into an icon through this disposal. But of course it's an icon because this supposedly ordinary wall, this proportion, this exactly proportion of the hole, this exactly proportion of the wall itself, and you know that the proportion of the wall itself is the same proportion as the whole house which is built beside it. All this make this very specific, very iconic, with once again almost nothing, just the right proportion. It's a unique proportion, a unique disposal. As soon as you see this, you immediately know where it is, what it is. And it's important because any good building is an icon in the way that any good building has a strong image. But not maybe only, it's not reducible to its iconic dimension, but for sure, I don't see any example of a good building that wouldn't have a strong image. Then ironic, this of course, Mr. King of Irony, Robert Venturi himself, in this house in Delaware. And it's ironic because of course he has made these ugly columns that are flat, that are of course, that has no precise dimension, proportion, sorry. And one of them is cut into parts. The other one is larger than the house. Another one is not placed at the right place. Another one is at the center, and it shouldn't be placed at the center because in the classical architecture, it's always void and not a column most of the time at the center. Well, Bob Venturi takes all those comments and manipulation of vocabulary to explain us that he is so smart, he's so he has a so great culture, and he is so able to be ironic. But what's the point about irony? This kind of irony, this typically postmodern irony, what is it? It's just a manipulation of vocabulary, but is vocabulary a relevant issue for today? I don't think so. And I think all those attempts to manipulate vocabulary are dedicated to a failure. And also there's a point that it's supposedly super ambiguous because you have half a column and so on. But of course, when things are so ambiguous and so obviously ambiguous, that when things tell you, look, I'm so ambiguous, of course, it's not ambiguous at all. It's very clear. It's very clear that you want to be ambiguous. You cannot be ambiguous if you intend to be. It's not that way that architecture works. And of course, when Venturi explained our ambiguity or contradiction in his book, of course, it's much better than here. But the problem is that this kind of manipulation of vocabulary are very successful since that time, and in that obvious way or many other ones. And I don't think irony is relevant for architecture, because irony, what does it mean, irony? It means I'm an architect with a high culture, as said Venturi, and I look at ordinary things, but of course I know that ordinary things are ordinary. And I consider that ordinary things are maybe very lively, but also a bit stupid. And then I use this high culture to mimic ordinary architecture. But the problem is that ordinary architecture cannot be mimicked. When you are architect, you have lost your innocence. You cannot produce ordinary things. So working in that way is completely ironic, but ironic it means that you look at things from above and you play as a mouse, as a cat with a mouse, but you don't, I think, respect in a way neither architecture nor society for which you produce buildings. And then authentic ironic. I would say this desk in Le Corbusier's mother's house that he did for himself. Of course, it's a kind of ironic to put yourself on a throne to write something. And of course, it's also completely a kind of fiction, because as soon as you sit there, you feel like San Girolamo in his studio. Of course, it's completely linked to this kind of, it could be also in a kind of a Giotto picture with this strange scale and strange elements. You don't understand exactly how it works. On one hand, it's super rational. On the other one, it's completely poetic by the kind of unexpected situation. But so there is a kind of irony in this. I would say it's more about humor than irony, about a certain self-distanciation than strictly irony. But also, what is it like that? It's like that because this window couldn't be higher, because actually under the window, this is the roof of the house, because this room is an extension. So this room looks above the existing house roof to the lake. So you need to have the view when you work. You need to do such a thing. And all this is in a very tiny space, a space in which you're not able to say if it's an old space or a modern one. It's painted this kind of gray blue as the color of the lake, and it's completely melting into the landscape, completely seemingly stupid and irrational, and completely rational and explainable in a way. This is what makes this thing strange and not bizarre, and very close to surrealistic process in a way. Authentic, ironic architectural poetry. I show you very quickly a building we are currently completing in the south of France, in Toulouse. It's a logistical plant, 2 wings of 10,000 square meters each. One aligned on the very important car kind of urban highway. The other one is aligned on another territorial element, which is a canal. At the center, the little vehicles that bring the products from there, that deliver from there to the center of the city. On the outside, the big trucks that comes from the harbors to bring the boxes. 2 rooms of 10,000 square meter each. It's a big roof with the system of shed, which is belonging for ages now to the industrial world, but that brings natural light that was not asked by the brief, but we wanted to give natural light to people working in this. And this roof is larger than the building to create a kind of shelter. So we have a series of fake things. We have first a fake perspective, of course, that you understood already. I don't have the very right pictures for that, but you understand it through the plan. It seems almost parallel here. It's very exaggerated perspective there. It's so inside, it's like that. It's a big room with a shed, so full of natural light. And then outside, those sheds, they are continuing and they are cutted almost like in a construction book section. It's a work about representation in a way in which the representation tends to turn into reality. We don't represent the thing we are making, we make the thing we are representing. And this edge of the roof is almost as a technical section of such a roof. And then we finish the system with this big beam, Virendel beam. It's intending to be on the main facade, and to qualify this as a main facade, it's the facade on the public space. And this beam is maybe nice because it seems completely useless. If it would be really useless, it would be absolutely stupid, of course. But it's completely useful, and it finishes the system to hold the roof and the curtain wall. But of course, it seems like that floating above the building. It seems that it's completely useless. And of course, it's a kind of marvelous of the useless element, but which is useful. It appears as a fake, but it's completely authentic. And the poetic is on this edge between this, I think, ambiguous condition in which you could imagine this as a useless thing, but it's completely useful. And to finish, we have another fake authentic stuff in that building. Probably you see that on this picture by Philippe Dujardin, that the building, we have brought into this industrial system a level of abstraction and precision that it's not very usual in this, and that made it appear as a kind of model. It looks as a model picture, but it's the real picture, and it's all also about the care that we can take, that we can offer to our building to make them better in a way, and more pleasant and more poetic and more successful. And even also by using the contemporary means of production, the contemporary necessities as pipes and wires, we turn this into ornament. So it's completely involved in reality, in contemporary reality. It's kind of corporate architecture turned into artistic position, let's say. Thank you.
Thank you, Éric. Thank you very much. We strongly appreciate the sharpness of your presentation, and as well, like the fact that we see why we invite you. We see in your works and we see in your presentation. So really, thanks a million for that. And now we go to our third guest, who is Beniamino Servino. He's an architect based in Italy, in Caserta, near Naples. And of course, as an architect, you cross by Beniamino's drawings several times, I would say. If you Google him, he has a huge production of drawings. It's such an incredible amount of works, extremely carefully made and extremely tailor-made in a way, and handmade. And I don't want to say many things more, just the fact that he's also an architect, a practicing architect, very precise. I would invite you to check his Casa Pozzo Vetere, or else his book. He's also an author. But I just let you talk, Beniamino, and I will share your presentation. So Okay. There you go. Beniamino?
Sì.
Devi attivare l'audio. Adesso forse ti sentiamo.
Mi sentite?
Sì, perfetto.
Va bene. Io parlerò in italiano. Intanto vi ringrazio per l'attenzione e per l'invito. Una informazione tecnica. Luca, ti invito a mandare le immagini in sequenza, così, perché non c'è corrispondenza fra le immagini e quello che dico.
Va bene.
E le puoi mandare in loop, quindi faranno da sfondo a queste considerazioni che seguiranno.
Perfetto.
Il titolo di questo breve intervento, che poi è l'elenco di una serie di appunti, di note sul tema del falso e dell'autentico, e che queste possono essere ascritte, questi due momenti, a delle categorie estetiche. Noi siamo nel grande contenitore delle categorie estetiche, quelle che hanno a che fare con la conoscenza sensibile, e in particolare le categorie dell'apparizione, che sono, diciamo, una serie di diadi, di coppie di enti che sono oppositivi ma anche complementari, e che rimandano a queste due parti che sono sempre interscambiabili tra di loro, del reale, del vero e del verosimile che sembra vero. E questa successione di diadi costruiscono una sorta, anche più lentamente, Luca, costruiscono una sorta di registro, di approccio al progetto di architettura. Reale, vero, verosimile che sembra vero, e si porta dietro poi a cascata il credibile e l'incredibile, dove il credibile ha un'accezione negativa, l'inganno. L'incredibile invece ha un'accezione meravigliosa, che è quella del desiderio. Quindi fra credibile e incredibile si spostano nella categoria di destra, cioè del positivo, l'incredibile, mentre nella categoria di sinistra del negativo, il credibile, quasi come se tendere alla credibilità costruisse una sorta di macchinazione dell'inganno. E tutte queste coppie di elementi oppositivi si portano dietro poi il rapporto con la memoria, che è quella da cui poi si attinge e si trasferisce nel campo del visibile l'apparato di immagini, di icone, di simboli. E la memoria va intesa non tanto come un archivio di dati, un database, ma come un processore di dati. La memoria costruisce continuamente delle elaborazioni di dati immessi in tempi diversi, e queste elaborazioni sono degli adattamenti, dei trasferimenti da un momento all'altro, da un tempo a un altro, di immagini fissate velocemente. E questa operazione è già un'operazione progettuale, cioè l'adattamento a sé di immagini archiviate velocemente e quindi conservate ma elaborate e continuamente elaborate, è un'operazione che è ascrivibile alla grande categoria del progetto. Ed è l'operazione che faccio io nel quotidiano, cioè tutte queste immagini che scorrono sono costruzioni di appunti per la realizzazione di oggetti finiti di architettura. Questi oggetti poi di volta in volta li recupero in occasioni progettuali concrete e attraverso un'operazione di adattamento al luogo, alla funzione, utilizzo un repertorio di immagini costruite secondo un processo di adattamento di elementi mnemonici che ho elaborato, dove il vero, cioè il reale, e il verosimile, cioè quello che vuole mostrarsi reale, si confondono, si intrecciano, si interscambiano continuamente. Il credibile e l'incredibile hanno a che fare anche poi con l'idea della simulazione e della dissimulazione, del mostrare o del nascondere, che è poi l'operazione del fedele e dell'infedele, del tradimento. Ecco, il termine tradimento è un momento importante dell'operazione che porta dall'archiviazione di dati alla loro elaborazione per farli diventare poi i progetti. Cioè il tradimento è un modo sano per portare da un tempo a un altro, da un corpo a un altro, un oggetto, una storia, un racconto. E in questo poi la persona che diventa parte attiva di questa operazione diventa vettore, cioè porta attraverso di sé, attraverso l'operazione dell'adattamento, i dati che ha incamerati, li manipola, li articola, li adatta e li trasforma e li trasferisce ad altri. Questa tecnica è una tecnica diciamo rigorosissima, dove la visione è semplicemente una lettura della realtà attraverso il proprio archivio di dati. La visione non ha niente a che fare con la previsione, cioè con qualcosa che aspira a prevedere il futuro, è semplicemente un modo di leggere la realtà attraverso le lenti dell'adattamento di dati accumulati. E qui quindi le categorie del vero e del falso si confondono, si intrecciano, l'una innesca l'altra e l'una alimenta l'altra. Non possono essere distinte perché fanno parte di un unico corpo di informazioni che attraverso la memoria vengono elaborate e diventano altro che sono le stesse cose trasferite attraverso di sé. Cioè dove il progettista è un vettore che trasporta ad altri le cose che ha sentito da altri. È come un rapsodo che ascolta una storia, la racconta ad altri facendola passare attraverso di sé. E la storia è sempre diversa, è sempre uguale a se stessa. E gli elementi poi diventano iconografici, diventano delle icone, perché diventano delle immagini che si pongono come tipi sui quali si può intervenire operando, producendo infiniti modelli. Ed è un'operazione quasi alchemica, dove se si inseriscono dei dati se ne ricevono degli altri, se ne producono degli altri. E questa continua alterazione di dati è un innesco che produce continuamente nuove immagini, ma che ripetono sempre le stesse immagini, fino ad arrivare alla definizione di bello, della bellezza, che è possibile se si pone in un registro molto chiaramente definito. Da un lato il familiare, il riconoscibile, il noto, e dall'altro il meraviglioso, lo stupore. Quindi si riesce ad avere la percezione del bello che è salvifica e serena se io da un lato riconosco come familiare, noto, e dall'altro mi preparo attraverso questa sicurezza che il familiare e il noto mi danno a godere della meraviglia. Tutto qui.
Grazie Beniamino. Facciamo scorrere le tue immagini che parlano da sé.
Sì. Io ho mostrato delle immagini e non dei progetti di opere realizzate, perché questo archivio di immagini che io costruisco quotidianamente, come tu hai accennato prima, mi servono come repertorio di modelli fisici che io metto su una mensola e tengo lì pronti. E ogni volta, quando capita l'occasione reale di un progetto, io non entro in relazione con il luogo, così come nella leggenda compositiva si racconta, cioè che il luogo che produce il progetto, ma il luogo ospita un oggetto e diventa da luogo naturale a paesaggio, cioè l'architettura e la natura e il paesaggio sono indipendenti ed autonomi ed entrano in connessione quando l'uno interviene sull'altro, non è desunto dall'altro, ma interviene sull'altro. Quindi la costruzione di un repertorio di segni, un repertorio di oggetti è fondamentale per poter poi produrre dei progetti inserendo in questi oggetti funzioni e dimensioni.
La tecnica sembra contingente.
È un tema questo estremamente complesso, spero di non aver complicato molto le idee.
Assolutamente.
Però mi serviva dare degli spunti di riflessione e proprio dei dispositivi, delle regole di composizione del progetto.
Ok. Beniamino, grazie mille anche a te. And,
Salute a tutti, grazie per l'invito.
Grazie. We thank you everyone and we close with no discussion this first meeting. We invite you to join us this Friday also from 12:30, 1 hour. We will have the guys from VG13, Tommaso Fantini and Alberto Rossi, and then we will have McKeever Eck Chevrolet and Solid Objectives Soil from New York. Again, thanks everyone for your generosity and thank you for following us. Thanks a million. Ciao Éric, ciao Rocco.
Bye bye guys.
Ciao Beniamino.
Ciao Luca, ciao Rocco.
Bye.
Ciao a tutti.
Ciao a tutti.
Ciao,
Ciao.
grazie.